So this is an information session about the year-long writing project, a little bit about what we'll be going over today. So going over the program, we're going to hear from some students. Each of the mentors will introduce themselves and their projects and talk a little bit about what you can expect. I'll come back in with some administrative details, and then we will leave time for a Q&A at the end. So a little bit about the Loft. We're based here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We're celebrating 51 years this year. The Loft advances the power of writers and readers to craft and share stories, to create and celebrate connections, and to build just life-sustaining communities. It's a wonderful organization located in Open Book Building in downtown Minneapolis. A little bit about the year-long writing project. At its core, it is about supporting writers in creating sustainable writing practices, as well as getting you involved with a small cohort of people to help work on a bigger project. So some core elements of the program include craft instruction and mentorship. You get to be in a small group that meets weekly, so 12 people max in each of those cohorts. There's an individual study component, so you have time to dive into some readings and some independent activities in between each of the terms. You'll hear a little bit more about this from each of the teaching artists, but there's opportunities to meet visiting authors, publishers, agents, editors, so really getting a feel for the publishing landscape through this programming. There's consultations with each of the teaching artists, so you get to meet with them 4 times throughout the program. Once at the beginning, twice during the program, and then once at the end when you submit that final manuscript to them. There's a public reading at the end, so a culmination of all that hard work where we get to hear some of that writing with a live audience where you can invite family, friends, and celebrate all of the progress that's been made. There's also a ton of opportunities to get involved in Loft programming. I send out an email to the year-long folks to notify them of when opportunities are coming up, give them exclusive access to some events. So it's really a great opportunity to get to know not only the folks in your cohort or the other year-long writing project members, but to get to know our other constituents that we have here in Minneapolis and online, since we do offer, this is an online program, but we have in-person things going on as well. So just to give you a sense of some of the upcoming events that we have going on, Jack, if you can drop into the chat the event page. These are some of the events that are coming up this week with Valeria, for example. We've got our Loft Writing Network, which is our online community. If you want to continue to dig into those craft and community components, a bunch of readings. Human Win will be leading a book club around Hugh's book, Not Here. And he will actually also be dropping into that book club. And then we have some mentor series readings coming up and youth opportunities as well. So a really wide range of things that you can get involved in beyond the program as you really make it your own and have the opportunity to build your writing practices, but also your life as a writer. So a little bit about each of the cohorts. They all are on similar schedules, but they have different start dates depending on which cohort you're interested in. So for example, we've got creative nonfiction with Sun Yung that starts on January 26th. We've 2026, that's a Monday. We've got memoir project starting with Kelly on Wednesday, January 28th. Novel writing project starts with Peter on Thursday, January 29th. Fiction writing project starts with Junauda on Saturday, June 6th, and then poetry apprenticeship starts with Heid on Saturday, June 6th as well. When you're applying to each of these programs, or signing up, I should say, you'll choose one to join. So the first 3, those are going to be our winter start cohorts. So those will start all in January, and our 2 June start, those will be starting in the summer. Orientation for each of those, depending on whether it's a winter start or a summer start, will start the week before the cohort begins. So January 21st for those winter cohorts, and then June 3rd for the summer cohorts. Generally speaking, they're on a 3-term schedule. So you'll have 12 weeks in the fall, 12 weeks in the winter, and 8 weeks in the summer. And then you'll have a break in between each, depending on which one you're interested in. So with the winter one, there's a break in May, and then there's another break that comes up at the end of the summer. And then with the summer start cohort, there's a break in at the end of the summer once again, and then in December. Those final readings take place at the end of the cohort. So for the winter start cohorts, those will be in December. That's actually should be January. Those will be in January of 2027. And then the final readings for the summer cohorts will be in April of 2027. All right, so I have a couple of our alumni students here that are excited to join and share some of their experiences. So Sherry, would you like to share first? I'll go ahead and stop sharing.
Sure, I'll be glad to. Hi, everybody.
Thank you.
So Sherry Breen, I live in Morris, Minnesota, and there are three things that I wanted when I signed up for this program. I'm in the creative nonfiction with Yung Shin, and it has delivered on all three of those things. So I have been a writer for many years, but I was writing really in journalistic and academic ways. And I retired 2 years ago and wanted to switch to creative, more essay form of writing. And I felt a bit lost by myself. So I wanted a couple of things that this program gave me. One is I wanted instruction in the craft. Creative nonfiction is a different kind of writing than what I had done before. I had certainly experimented in creative writing, but I had not had any instruction in it. I was really trained in other kinds of writing. And the materials that Sun has given us in this program this year have been invaluable. And that's been readings, slides, discussion, all kinds of background resources that she's provided for us, both in the class for each week's discussion, but she's also often emailing us additional resources. And so it's instruction not only in the craft of writing, but also in publishing. And that's where the connections with agents and publishers, small presses, et cetera, have been really, really valuable. The second thing that felt like I really needed was feedback. I've been involved with a writing group in my small town of a couple of my peers, but I wanted another writing group. I wanted some feedback from people who are doing creative nonfiction. And that has been so successful, really on two levels. One is the workshopping. So we have in this program, we have 3 rounds of workshopping where we read each other's drafts and provide pretty extensive feedback to each other. And this group has been a really solid, supportive, connected group that has given useful feedback, detailed feedback, and we've become quite good friends. It was everything I hoped it would be, plus Sun Young's feedback on all the drafts and then on the final manuscript, which I'm going to be stressing about here pretty soon. And then the third thing that I was looking for was deadlines. Academic, the kind of writing I've been doing before, the deadlines were built in, but now I had more time to write, but no deadlines. And I was feeling a bit unmotivated, even though I knew I wanted to write. So the deadlines that are built into the program were extremely useful to me. So all around, that's my summary of what I was looking for, what I have successfully gotten, and how important this program has been to me. I'm really glad I've been part of this program this year.
Thank you so much, Sherry. Elijah.
Yeah, hi, I'm Elijah. Thanks for having me here. So I was part of the poetry cohort with Heid, not this current year, but the one before. I guess I can explain a little bit about why I signed up for the program. So I have an MFA in creative writing. I graduated from that program more than 10 years ago. So just kind of been out in the work world for a long time. And while I still write and manage to get things published here and there, putting a manuscript together is a challenge. So I can certainly echo the idea of having some structure and deadlines to help you write and be accountable. That's just great for every writer. And then myself, and it sounds like some folks in the comments, just day-to-day life is a lot to manage, and it can be hard to get into writing. And if you're not part of that writing world, it can be a little difficult looking from the outside. So this course ended up being a really great opportunity to get involved with, practicing writers with great experience and background. I was able to meet some new poets and some new publishers. I'm actually based in Los Angeles, so I think this was a great program for people who are even not in that sort of Twin Cities or Minnesota area. Minnesota and the Twin Cities have such a great publishing scene and writing scene, especially for poetry. Like it's actually a real hub for that. And so I found that to be a motivation to sign up for the class. And I guess the other thing I would say, I think the folks who probably got the most out of the course were people who had a project in mind or were on their way to producing something and needed help shaping that vision. So for myself, I probably had about 30 to 40 pages I felt pretty good about, but getting to something that felt more full length, something more, 60 pages-ish, say, was a hurdle that I needed help trying to get over. And I think the feedback and the workshopping, all of that got me a long way towards it. So I really enjoyed the experience, and I think all of you will as well. So I'll just pause there. Thanks.
Thank you so much. We'll have time at the end for Q&A for those folks. I don't think Brett was able to join. Brett, if you are here, let me know, but yeah, had some family stuff. Okay. So bring back my screen. Great. Okay, I'm going to give our project mentors an opportunity to speak to each of their cohorts and some of the things that you can expect. So we're going to hear from Peter Geye. Peter Geye received his MFA from the University of New Orleans and his PhD from Western Michigan University, where he was the editor of Third Coast. He's the author of the award-winning novels Wintering, winner of the Minnesota Book Award, Northernmost, The Ski Jumpers, A Lesser Light, and forthcoming in 2027, Book of Days, which will be his 7th novel. His first 2 novels, Safe from the Sea and The Lighthouse Road, are both being developed as feature films. 2026 will be his 11th year teaching the year-long novel writing project at the Loft Literary Center. Born and raised in Minneapolis, he continues to live there with his family. Thanks, Peter.
Thanks, Marianne. Thanks especially for including a 10-year-old picture of me there. I appreciate it very much. Welcome, everyone. It's great to see so many faces. I'm excited to tell you a little bit about the novel writing project that we have planned for next year and to answer any questions that you have. I thought I would tell you just a little bit more about who I am and then a little bit about the course. And then, like, who's a good candidate for the course. So at the end of my couple of minutes here, I'll put my contact information in the chat. Feel free to reach out with any questions you don't get asked or answered tonight. So this will be my 11th year. As I said, I think I've had about 200 students come through the novel writing project over the years. It's been a huge part of my life for the last decade. I love teaching this class. I am a practicing writer, which is to say that I do my work pretty much every day, or try to at least. I have a big family. I have 3 kids and 2 stepkids, and a dog that barks nonstop. And I like to think that added to that is I'm a dedicated teacher. As I said, I really love teaching this course and have been doing it this long, mainly because it gives me certainly as much as as I give to it. So this course it remains very much as it was originally conceived of, at least as far as I'm concerned, which is to be a writing intensive, community focused space where people come together at all different levels of ability, with all sorts of different genres, at all sorts of stages of work that has been done or not been done on a novel. And together we figure out how to work together, regardless of any of those things, to, at the end of our year together, have finished novels that we're ready to keep working on, that we're ready soon to take out into the world to try to publish. And that during that year, in our time together, we form not only relationships that are close because of the work, but that are close because of the people that we are and the group that we have become. Over the years, there has been, as you can well imagine, I'm sure, more than 200 students, sort of every type of novel that you can imagine. There have been writers that I can't believe haven't won Pulitzer Prizes yet, and there have been writers that were very green in the art of writing fiction. And I've maintained from the start that I think that spectrum of writers, that variety of writers, is one of the things that makes this program so fabulous. And the reason that I believe that is because um, whether you're a writer who's working on their third novel and really has a lot of experience and a lot of writing chops, or a writer who's had this dream for years and never really done anything about it, but is ready to give it a try, I think that the community that we form and the perspective that we bring from that spectrum of experience is invaluable. And I'm often as amazed by the student who has never practiced the craft of writing fiction before as I am the person who has those 3 finished novels in their closet, and the progress that each has made over the course of the year. The novel writing project is set up just a little bit differently this year. Instead of there being 3 terms, there are essentially 2. And I'll say more about that in a minute, but there's a 14-week term that begins on January 29th and a 14-week term that begins, when is it, September 10th, as well as 3 meetings over the summer. And one of the things that I've come to realize about the novel writing project is that for um, as focused as people become uh, on their own work, they're just as likely to become focused on the work of their colleagues. That's a part of the program. And what I wanted to do was allow for a bigger chunk of time over the summer for writers to really bear down and focus on their own work. On the subject of work, I want to say this. Um, it is an enormous commitment to sign up for this class and to undertake the project that we all undertake, which is to write or finish writing a novel in the time that we have together. It requires remarkable discipline. It requires really tough skin. It requires incredible imaginative endurance, as well as just like a commitment like you will have not made in your life before. If you have those things or believe that you have those things, I think you're probably a good candidate for the class. I want to mention one other thing, which is that this is a novel writing project. So, though I love reading and writing short stories, it's probably not a great fit for short story writers. I shouldn't say probably, it is not a great fit for short story writers. We focus very much on the longer form. Regarding genre, again, though I have preferences in my personal life, the sorts of books that I like to read. In this class, I insist again that the more variety there is, not only in experience, but in the form, the form and genre of the student body, so much the better. The person writing a mystery novel is likely to teach the person writing the literary novel a thing or two as the other way around. And as I said earlier, over the years, every sort of novel that you can imagine. Um, the last thing that I'll mention before I turn it over to the other writers is teaching artists rather, is that the three writers who will be visiting us this summer are Marcy Rendon, who's a sort of mystery thriller novelist, as well as a poet, I might add. Um, Nathan Hill, who's a New York Times bestselling author, and Nigar Alam, who's a novelist as well. So one pretty literary novel, one mostly literary novel, and one mystery. For though I think Marcy's work covers more than that. So yeah, so I'll be happy to answer questions at the end of this. For now, I'll send it back to Marianne and she can call on the next person.
Thanks, Peter. Okay. Next, we will hear from Kelly Sundberg. Kelly Sundberg's memoir, Goodbye, Sweet Girl, was published by HarperCollins in 2018. Her essays have appeared in a variety of venues, including Guernica, Gulf Coast, Denver Quarterly, The Rumpus, The New York Times, and others. Her essay, It Will Look Like a Sunset, was anthologized in Best American Essays 2015, and other essays have been listed as notables in the same series. She has been the recipient of fellowships and grants from the Ohio Arts Council, Vermont Studio Center, Dickinson House, and the National Endowment for the Arts. She lives in Columbus, Ohio, and is an assistant professor of creative writing at Ashland University. Her memoir and essays, The Answer is in the Wound, was published by Roxane Gay Books in August 2025. She lives, writes, and edits in Columbus, Ohio. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you so much. And I too really appreciate you using a 10-year-old photo. I think that's exactly how many it is, 10 years. And I also wanted to mention I'm no longer an assistant professor at Ashland University. I have an MFA and a PhD. I was in academia for 16 years. I have a special fondness for working with academics who are trying to write creatively for the first time. But I left academia a year and a half ago to focus more on my writing and developmental editing. And I found in the process, I missed the community of teaching. So I reached out to the Loft, and I've now been teaching at the Loft for, I think I've had 4 sessions. And I just really love this community of people. Thank you, Katie. I've noticed that the people who take the workshops at the Loft tend to be very rigorous, very thoughtful, very kind. These have been some of the most personally rewarding workshops that I've had the chance to teach. Nonfiction, memoir in particularly, is inherently vulnerable, regardless of the subject matter. And so I always try to approach my workshops from a place of care. I do not believe that care and rigor are in opposition to each other. I think that it is necessary to have the basics of care in a workshop in order to be rigorous in the ways that we need. So my workshops are very much focused on peer feedback. I tend to have everyone go around and say something they think is working, something they think could use improvement, and I try to expand upon that. In pedagogy, they call it like the sage on the stage or the guide on a side. And I'm definitely a guide on a side. Doesn't mean I don't have opinions or that you won't figure out what my opinions are, but I'm much more interested in critical affirmation and helping people learn how to form their own judgments and to trust themselves so that after the workshop, they're able to keep up the good work. The workshop periods themselves will look like probably an hour of craft talks and critical close reading. I love close reading. And then we'll do workshops, individual workshops. I for the workshops, want everyone to prepare. In my kind of shorter workshops that I've had, people have given verbal feedback, and then it's been optional whether or not they did written feedback. But for this course, because it is so important, I want everyone to provide written feedback to each other. And I too will provide an extensive, detailed letter after each workshop for the workshop participant. All of you will have the opportunity to meet with me 4 times, and we can coordinate that to talk about what you want to talk about most. I'm very interested in meeting people where they're at. I'm really pragmatic about the world of publishing. I published my first book with a Big 5 house, and my second book with Grove Atlantic, which is, for people who know, it's like the smallest, it's like the biggest of the small houses. So I've had quite a few kind of different experiences. My second book started out as an essay collection. It was sold as an essay collection. It was marketed as a memoir and essays. And to be honest, it was a memoir and essays. So what I'm saying is that if you're coming into this class having essays, but not technically having what you think is a traditional memoir, that's okay. I can help you shape it into a memoir from essays. I also think it's important to be aware that memoirs look like a lot of different things. They have a lot of different structures. So for the reading list, I've specifically chosen memoirs that have different kinds of structures, experimental structures, as well as more narrative structures, so that everyone can kind of have models for what they want their memoir to look like. I sold both of my books on a proposal, and I wrote both of them in about a year's time. So I've done this, I've been there. Peter is right. It takes so much dedication. It takes so much discipline. I didn't have a supportive community like this when I was writing my books, and I think it would have made life so much easier. But this is going to be a lot of work for the people who take the class as well as me. And so I do, if you are taking this, I think it's probably a good time. You're not maybe having any major like life transitions. If you feel like you have the time to dedicate not just to your own writing, but to responding to your peers' writing, which becomes quite a bit of it becomes a bit of work over time. Now, those responses to the peers' writing, I think, are as important as our responses to your writing, because in the process of learning how to respond to other writers, you are going to get better at your own writing. I've been doing developmental editing now for 1.5 years. My writing has become so much sharper, so much quicker, and I'm a better writer for it. We have, for visiting writers, we have River Selby, who had the memoir Hot Shot come out recently. Zoe Bossier, who has a memoir Cactus Country, but Zoe is also the managing editor of Brevity magazine. I was the managing editor of Brevity when I was in my PhD program. Zoe's been the managing editor of Brevity for quite a while. So Zoe can talk about not just writing, but also publishing. And Zoe also was an editor of the anthology, The Lyric Essay as Resistance. We have my agent, Joy Tatella, who is wonderful. I've been with her for a long time. I love her. She also represents wonderful writers like Maggie Smith, and she works at David Black Literary Agency. She's been an agent since the 90s. She knows what she's doing. She's also just really supportive. And then I have Marissa Siegel, who used to be the owner of The Rumpus, but is now the senior acquisitions editor at Northwestern University Press with the imprints Curbside and Triquarterly as well. And Marissa will talk about publishing with the kind of bigger university press. And then I have Kat Saunders, who's an acquisitions editor at Kent State University Press, and she will talk about publishing at more regional, smaller presses, which might interest some of you who are in places like that. Beyond that, I really look forward to reading everybody's writing. I look forward to getting to know everybody. Anyone who's had a class with me before knows that community matters to me a lot. I see some heads nodding. I think my super talent as a teacher is building really good communities. I'm gonna knock on wood because I don't want to jinx that. But I would love to have you in the class. If you have any questions, I'll give you my email address and feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kelly. All right, next, we're going to hear from, Sorry about that. We're going to hear from Yung Shin. She is not able to be here tonight. So I'm just going to read her bio, and she sent a video along. Yung Shin is an award-winning author of 13 books. She is a 2026 McKnight Foundation Fellow in Prose. She has been awarded fellowships and grants from the Bush Foundation, the Minnesota State Arts Board, and the McDowell Foundation. She has an MAT and an MFA in creative writing and has been teaching creative writing in the community and at the college level for many years. Her memoir, Heart Eater: Immigration, Belonging, and How We Find Ourselves in Language is forthcoming from Black Lawrence Press in May 2026. She is represented by Evita's Literary Agency and Blue Flower Arts Agency. Find out more at sanyungshin.com. Let me know if you can't hear this.
Hi, everyone. Thanks to Marianne and the Loft and my colleagues for this time. I'm Yung Shin, the mentor for the Loft's year-long writing program's creative nonfiction project. The 2026 cohort will be my 4th cohort of writers. I'm really excited to share with you a little bit about how I get to work with writers in this project. I'm so sorry I'm not there with you live. I teach another class on Wednesday nights, otherwise I would be there. And at the end, I'll share my email because I want people to be able to get in touch with me if you have any questions, since I'm not going to be there for the Q&A. So some of my key values as a writing mentor and teacher are, I would say, encouragement, flexibility, and individual attention. I'm also someone who's really focused on helping writers build relevant craft skills. I see my job as being a well-informed, supportive coach to help writers develop, refine, and evolve the vision of their project, its purpose, and its execution. And those things change and evolve, throughout the year, which is exciting. I definitely approach each writer as a unique individual. People come into the project with different experiences, of course, different goals, interests, and different styles, and that's all great. So I'm here to help everyone become more knowledgeable wherever they start from, build their skills, become more capable and resilient so that they can reach their goals, and also create or continue a sustainable writing practice. And a big part of that for this project is building community, which is really beautiful. My aspiration for cohort writers, individually and collectively, are that they are excited to keep returning to the work, to keep growing as writers, and also as literary citizens, part of the broader world of writers and readers. I help cohort members learn more about the complex landscape of contemporary publishing, and also to continue to explore and discover various pathways to sharing their work with readers. As a group, I help the cohort build an artistic community by facilitating productive structures, confidential sharing of work and ideas, and by having that timeline accountability that probably most writers are looking for in a project like this. As far as logistics, our cohort will meet on Monday nights from 6 to 9 p.m. Central, completely on Zoom. There's also, I think, a few Saturday mid-morning sessions throughout the year. So we spend those sessions discussing assigned readings. We write from generative prompts. There will be craft lectures every week with shared slides, and all the resources will be accessible to everyone, and we'll have discussions, and we'll also have smaller peer conversations in breakout rooms. We will also be learning from really amazing guests, and then of course we'll be holding writing workshops throughout the year. I will meet with each writer individually 4 times throughout the year to address individual needs and interests. And then I and the cohort also help each individual writer just continually identify strengths, areas of opportunity. The group progresses together, very much so, and we spend time troubleshooting common writerly challenges that really everyone has, and then also each person's project. So I'm also always sharing outside resources throughout the year. For workshopping, just briefly, there's a lot to the art of workshopping, but I can give a brief overview and also talk more to people offline if you have questions about it or concerns. We'll have 3 rounds of workshopping during the year. That's part of this project. The process is that writers will submit probably up to 15 double-spaced type pages to the cohort 2 weeks in advance of their individual workshops. And then at the time that they submit the pages, that person, the author of those pages, have the opportunity and are encouraged to ask their peers to look at specific things in their work if they want to. I also provide pretty extensive written comments on participants' writing for these workshops. I also participate in the discussion, facilitate the discussion, keep us on track. I'm also, write a lot of feedback on the final manuscript at the end of the year. And then I have a last one-on-one with each writer. So lastly, visiting guests for 2026 may include memoirists Michael Kleber-Diggs and Kao Kalia Yang, plus literary agents Erica Stevens and Jennifer Thompson, and a visit from veteran publishing editor Anne Regan. And our guests are always really wonderful, really generous. I prepare them in advance by sharing my syllabus and sharing what the writers of my cohort are working on. And so I make sure that that hour that they come is really productive and focused on what the cohort is looking for. So since I'm unable to be with you live, again, I'm happy to talk to anyone who has questions, concerns, thoughts. Please reach out. My email is sunyungshin@gmail.com, and the Loft has my permission to share it in the chat and with you all. You can also always find me through the contact page in my website, sunyungshin.com. That's what I have for this info session. Hopefully it was short and sweet. Please feel free to reach out to me, and I really look forward to working with the Loft to build the next creative nonfiction cohort. Thank you so much.
Yay. Okay, Jack, if you don't mind sharing that in the chat. Thank you so much to Sun Yung for sharing that information. Next, we will hear from our poetry apprenticeship mentor, Heid Erdrich. Heid Erdrich has authored several poetry collections, including Little Big Bully, a National Poetry Series winner. Erdrich edited New Poets of Native Nations anthology from Grey Wolf Press and has received many honors, including the Rebecca Johnson Bobbitt National Prize for Poetry from the Library of Congress and a National Artists Fellowship from the Native Arts and Cultures Foundation. A firm believer in service to the literary community, Heid regularly serves as a visiting writer for awards and grants and was the James Welsh visiting writer at University of Montana, Missoula in 2025. Heid is Ojibwe, enrolled at Turtle Mountain. She was the 2023 chairperson of the National Book Awards Poetry Panel. Her most recent book is a hybrid of poetry, prose, and writing prompts titled Verb Animate, Trio House Press, 2024. I'll turn it over to Heid. Thank you.
Sorry, got the wrong glasses on. I couldn't see the unmute. Hi, I'm Heid. Really happy to be here tonight. Some of the things that I'm going to do in 2026 are possibilities right now. Because we're starting in June, some things have not been worked out. This would be my second year teaching the year-long writing project. I have previously taught in MFA programs, and the basis of my teaching is, for the most part, replicating the last year of a poetry thesis project, in which we do some work with craft of poetry, generative work, peer workshops and reviews, and practical sessions in which I introduce you to other writers. We ask them questions. My general pedagogy is inquiry-based. meaning we will together examine questions about poetry, find resources, look at how research influences poetry, think about our own work and what we might need to do to finish creating and forming and developing a collection of poetry. We'll ask questions of one another, and the more we are together, the more we'll get to know one another's work and where we are in the process. The idea of creating a manuscript of a length that could be submitted as a chapbook or submitted to a book competition is our end goal. However, to do that work, we often think about working in poem series or poems that connect together in some ways. So some of the sort of functional way we look at one another's work would be to look at a few poems and then ask, what's missing? What other poem would work here? What ideas do you have for filling out this interesting thing you've introduced into your poetry? Oftentimes, I feel like that's a rich spot to go for poets who are working, especially on a first book manuscript, because it's about expressing something, that doesn't have a plot, doesn't have a lifeline that you're detailing. It's a little unlike prose projects. It's really about shaping that album kind of concept. So I love to work with folks who are both uh, pretty sure they have where they're going and see them find out that they have new ways and other ways to go about completing their book project, and people who have no idea where their poems go together. Is it a selection of poems? Is it a loose project? Are these poems uh, finding an audience? A lot of those questions will come into our conversation. I enjoy peer workshopping, but we agree to some rules and values for workshopping together as a group and proceed with workshop in ways that are helpful, supportive, but are not simply our critique over your creativity. So, my main interest is in learning who you are as a poet, not who you want to present as an editor, although I think those skills are excellent and will strengthen you. Really, we're talking about relating poet to poet and poet to poet working on a project. The technical and details of our calendar and so forth will become more clear, and I'll be working to get those up sometime in 2026, early in 2026. But right now we're on a Wednesday schedule. We will also have some Saturdays. In order to be flexible and realistic about what a writer's life is like, we have to leave a little bit of flexibility in the schedule. And but last year I think we only had to reschedule 2 classes because of something I was asked to do outside of my teaching with you all, because as a working writer, I have to go when they call me. So but I love to share the details of those events with you too, and everything from, what does a contract look like, and how do you prepare for this kind of work, and how did you do that collaboration? And I like to bring in professionals who've helped me with that. Last year we had Yung Shin in, and that was great. We had Roy Guzman, another poet, award-winning poet in Minneapolis, who just had their first book out. And we had Chris Biak, who's the new publisher and editor at Trio House Press, come in, as well as a number of other professionals who we exchanged classes, and they came in to talk about their particular expertise. I also was thinking that I should mention here, Marianne, the course that I'm going to teach in the winter. Okay. You may not think you have enough poems, or you may know somebody else who you kind of want to get them in on the idea of a year-long project, but you might not feel like you have that manuscript ready yet. You don't have to have a 40-page manuscript for this year. We're going to work on it and develop it. I think we did 10, 15, 20 poems for workshop, and then the final. I think that's how we did it last year, but there were also a couple of 5-poem workshops where we just like shared new work with one another, and that was wonderful too. I met with people more often than 4 times during the year. I like to have a Zoom meeting, half hour, 45 minutes before you workshop, just to go over things with you and maybe help you find some questions that you'll ask, because part of that inquiry is we're asking each other questions. We're not just saying what we think or what we would do. We are asking questions. And my editorial stance is to really interrogate your manuscript. So you might not have a ton of close edits. You might not have a lengthy letter from me. It's usually a page with some close edits, but there's these essential questions that I've worked out, and I'd like people to really consider those. So that will be happening. And then in order to sort of prep for the course, if you're thinking about it, there's a short workshop that I'm going to do over the winter. Is it 4 or 6 sessions, Marianne? I think it's written as 6 now, but it takes place over 6 weeks in any case. And that is a short course in preparing a literary manuscript, a poetry manuscript. And I can tell you more about it, or you can, ask to get on the list to learn about that workshop. But essentially, it's going to be helping people figure out how to write a short manuscript for applications, awards, chapbook contests, residencies, all the things that poets are asked to produce a 15 to 20-page manuscript for. Sometimes only 10, so don't get intimidated. It could just be a 10-page manuscript. But yeah, is there anything else I left out of that, Marianne? I kind of was able to join you all last minute, so I'm really excited that I got to be here. But I'm also thinking into the future and doing this on the fly.
Did you want to share any potential guests?
Oh yeah, well I'm hoping Sun Yung will come back again, because Sun Yung has just incredible experience and is a great teacher. And I think that I work with Indigenous Nations poets, and I've had some amazing experiences working with poets who are just getting their first books. So I will invite Kinsale Drake to talk to us, and I will invite who was a National Poetry Series winner with her first book, talk about getting lucky, anonymous manuscript, and you get the National Poetry Series, and also Annie Wenstrup, who has recently won a Whiting Award. So I'm going to ask the two of them to visit with us, and possibly Kenzie Allen, who won a number of awards 2 years ago with her first book and is finishing her second. So yeah, I'm hoping the 3 of them will be able to visit with us. And yeah, so we'll see who's able to come.
Thank you so much, Heid. If you're open to having folks contact you and you can drop your email in the chat, that would be great. I will share my screen one more time. Okay, we're going to hear from, last but not least, our fiction writing project mentor, Junauda Petrus. Junauda Petrus is a writer, pleasure activist, filmmaker, and performance artist born on Dakota land of Black Caribbean descent. Her work centers around wildness, queerness, Black, diasporic, futurism, ancestral healing, sweetness, shimmer, and liberation. Her debut novel, The Stars and the Blackness Between Them, earned a Coretta Scott King honor. She is the 2025-2026 Minneapolis Poet Laureate. Thank you so much, Junauda.
Hey y'all, I am at the airport, so is it kind of loud, or are y'all able to hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm glad I was able to be here. At first I thought I'd only be able to do a video, but I'm in the airport live and direct. And yeah, will be my second year doing the year-long writing project. And it's been really awesome, this particular first cohort. And for me, like a lot of my focus as a teacher is I want to individually essentially help support writers and healing and tending to any wounds and barriers and obstacles they've accumulated as part of their writing journey. So I think like a lot of us have, fallen in love with writing in a very personal, tender, sort of solitary way. And also a lot of the spaces in which we have learned to be a writer, i.e., school, academia, what have you, often add baggage or, coming from families that maybe didn't fully support us or just, our general community, our world's inability to really love on and support and tend to, the artistic life. So for me, a lot of it is wanting to connect people with their own power, their own unique voice. Um, and a lot of it is just kind of reflecting on like, well, how do you make your writing experience the most grounded and pleasurable so you can be the most generative? So I think I do a lot of things so far as being like, yeah, like what are the things that truly inspire you? What are the things that bring you to the page? And also on finding spaces to be consistent, regardless of how much you actually write. But if you can be consistently write for 20 minutes a day, tending to that, if it's every other day. So I think trying to figure out hacks to really get people into the writing space to be as generative as possible. Um, I also am a writer that writes primarily in fiction in some ways, but also am a poet, am a screenwriter, I'm a playwright. So there's a lot of ways where I see writing as an opportunity to really live in the vastness of what the word can do and using the container of novels as a way to play and really sort of be adventuresome and wild and open to the ways that your story is really meant to be with you, that our stories and the characters that we are feeling drawn to are feeling drawn to us. So how do we, sort of make that relationship meaningful and powerful? So a lot of it is around creating rituals around your writing, and figuring out ways that research and reflection and just living a life with mindfulness and present will allow us to truly, yeah, just kind of continue to be in a beautiful conversation with our projects. Collectively, what I've really loved doing with class is starting with some kind of mindfulness and grounding and embodiment. I think also as an artist, I do a lot of, performance and dance and whatnot. And I try to get my students to be like, yeah, you write with your whole body, not just your head. And I think particularly as writers, we can be very much in our head. So understanding like, yeah, like what are all of the different parts of ourselves that um participate in that, um to yeah, really be a safe space for each other as writers. I think that I've really loved seeing how my cohort this year just have gotten more and more comfortable with each other. And I think the more and more they can be themselves, the more and more they can show up authentically to their writing. And I really am intentional around like, I don't want people feeling like this is a space for judgment. This is a space to be critical for yourself. Like I'm really doing my best that when we're in spaces together that we actually resist and interrogate the ways that that might occur amongst ourselves personally and within the group. It's been such a juicy and loving, supportive space, honestly. Um, so our sessions typically, we check in about writing in an artist's life, like looking at the past week, like where are the ways that we're proud of what we've accomplished, what are the things we want to improve on. We do some mindfulness and embodiment. We do a craft and artistic practice discussion. And then I've been doing like just like having people actually write in class and really sort of kind of like, I kind of see it as like coaching, like you got your coach has you do things, and then these are things that you can continue to propel. Um, so some things I say about my approach to workshopping is it's writer led. So I really want you as a writer to feel like what you need from it is what you receive and what you ask for is what's being responded to. That it's intentional and specific, that it's supportive and strategic, that it actually is again helping you get to what you want to do, and that it's empowering, and that yeah, that you get what you need to continue the momentum of what you're doing. Um, so yeah, I think that as far as guests, I definitely have an array of writers that I think would be tremendous some to talk specifically around the fiction writing aspect of it. And again, people just talking about, well, what is a writer's and artist's life? That how do we sort of center and intentionalize who we are in sort of respect for what it is that we've chosen to do or what's chosen to do us. As sometimes I feel like a writer, it's like writing really chose me to torture me forever. Just kidding. But I love writing. I love helping writers. I love how weird and emotional and awkward and quirky writers are. I think like I said, I do a lot of art stuff. And I feel like writers, we're definitely, you know, thinkers and feelers. So it's a space where I really want to encourage that and also getting as much of that on the page. So that's it, y'all. If there's anything else that maybe I should cover, Marianne, that I didn't cover.
Did you want to share any of your visiting writers or potential invited?
Yeah. So potentials are my friends Carvel Wallace, who does more memoir stuff, but I still think he's interesting, such an interesting writer. That I think it lives in these very experimental ways that I very much value. Alexis Duveau, who's a mentor of mine, Sharon Bridgeforth, who's another mentor, Candace Elo, who's a young adult fiction writer, Joseph Earl Thomas, who's another fiction homie, Shannon Gibney, who's a local fiction writer, and then Andrew Carr, who's my editor at Penguin. So those are some potentials, and it's really guided by who would be in the cohort. And I'm gonna give my email in here for folks to you know, holler at me. I see somebody asked if I teach short story writing within my course. I don't specifically teach short story writing. I think like the things that I offer work towards any kind of writing practice that can be shaped into short stories, but I'm definitely, I realize, which is so awkward. I mean, I have written short stories, but I'm very much like in the long fiction realm, which is just like such a weird realm, but it's the realm I find myself in. But, you know, I do feel like people who write short stories is like, you know, they're so good at it. Like, I think I could support people if that's their thing, but it's not necessarily a thing where I have a lot of craft sort of details. But I don't know. I'm there to help anybody. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Junauda. Okay, just a couple more slides and we're almost there. Again, my name's Marianne. I am here to help. My email is mmansler@loft.org. If you have any questions, Jack Harris is one of the Loft's amazing program coordinators. He's been helping to facilitate this meeting as well. jharris@loft.org if you have any questions, or edu@loft.org is a great way to reach us if you have more questions, concerns, things like that. So some administrative details regarding the year-long writing project. The cost of the program is $7,500. So that includes all of the things that they've talked about and that process of joining the cohort. So when registration opens in November, it will open on November 13th and 14th. 13th, if you are a friend of the Loft, it will open on November 14th for the general public. So to ensure that the project is a fit and that, you know, the vibe is on point, we have the teaching artists and students meet before registering in full so that you're able to ensure that, you know, that is a fit. The payment would not be taken until after that initial phone call. There are payment plans available to help kind of spread that out over the year. We also have access funds available. We have one funded spot per cohort. It is an application-based process. So essentially the application is in submittable. There's room for you to put down all of your information as well as answer some narrative questions. So some of those questions revolve around describing your current writing project. You describe your current interest and your current interest in the art and craft of writing. What experience do you have with writing workshops, things like that. A desire for resources and community. So what other resources have you had access to or not? Why do you seek a community such as this to give us a sense of who you are? And then the final question in that form would be around experienced financial and lived barriers. Are there any experienced financial and lived barriers to the participation of your artistic career development, so that the loft can kind of get a full picture of each of those applicants. So when applying though to each of the year-long writing projects, you would either choose to, if you are interested in the Access Fund spot, you would apply to that and not to the regular waitlist. Again, registration for the winter cohort starts November 13th and 14th. For our summer start cohorts with Junauda and Heid, those open in April, April 8th and 9th. If you have any questions regarding that, please reach out to us. We're happy to answer those. Here's the link. Jack can drop it in the chat for you if you want to learn more about the Access Fund application process. It is a separate process from our pool, just so you're aware. All right, thank you so much for your time. What questions do y'all have for the teaching mentors? I think some of the student panelists have stuck around, which I really appreciate. I'll also kind of go through the chat and see what we have there. And feel free to unmute if you have a question. And please say your name too, so we know. Thank you. Hey, Amy.
Hey there, my name's Amy. How many students will be in each cohort?
Great question. There will be 12 students in each cohort.
Okay, thank you. Oh, one other question.
Yeah.
When can we start filling out that application?
For the access funds?
No, for the program.
Oh, for the program. That will open on November 13th.
Oh, so, okay. So we have to like fill it out and submit it right away,
Yes.
pretty
Yeah.
much. Okay. I
Yeah,
think
they fill
that's
up
it.
pretty quickly. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great question. Any other questions for me or any of the teaching mentors?
Hi there, this is Sarah from Minneapolis. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about the differences between the creative nonfiction track and the memoir track. They seem like they could be maybe overlapping or similar in some ways, but what's the best way to choose between the two?
Did you say that question was directed to me?
It's directed to anybody who's willing to answer.
I can give I could try, but yeah, Kelly or well, Sunyoung's not here, but Kelly can speak to her cohort. It really is up to you in terms of looking at each of the descriptions of the cohorts. They have, I think different approaches to memoir and to creative nonfiction. So it can be pretty teaching artist led. Kelly, did you have anything else you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I would just say I think there can probably be quite a bit of overlap because the way I approach memoir is, like I said, my second book was technically an essay collection. So I already have this kind of vision for memoir in sort of more hybrid and experimental ways. So if you're coming to me with a collection of essays, I'm happy to workshop that as a collection of linked essays or to make it into a memoir, researched books as well. Beyond that, I just don't know enough about the other class to really know what the differences would be. But this is not necessarily a strict narrative memoir class. I am also very interested in lyric writing. And so when I talk about lyric writing versus narrative, narrative would be plot based. This happened, this happened, this happened. And lyric would be language based. I love it all. I'm willing to workshop it all.
Awesome, thank you. Sherry, do you want to speak to that?
Because Sunyoung's not here, I'll just add that this year, for example, in the cohort in creative nonfiction, several people are writing memoirs. And so it definitely crosses over. And it was also one of the questions I had when I first was thinking about applying to the program was how much was it going to be memoir, how much of the group was going to be doing more essay and book length creative nonfiction. I mean, we're all working on book length. But I agree that there's really a lot of crossover, and you could be in, if you're interested in memoir, you could be in either one and find a place.
Yes, thank you so much. Hi, Joe.
I had a question. Oh, I'm sorry.
I think, Joe, you're muted. If you want to type your question in the chat, we might be able to hear you that way. Christine, did you have a question meantime?
Yes, how is the formatting? Do you expect the students to, I know every teacher is different, but do you expect students to print out the participants' essays and write on them directly, or would you prefer them to write them in the comments at the bottom of the essay? I was just curious about the nitty-gritties, because I've had trouble in the past with scanning the essay and writing. It just sometimes it's a lot of work printing when your printer has a personality of its own.
Yeah, that's a great question. I can let the teaching artists speak to it, but I believe digital is probably preferred, but I'll let the teaching artists say otherwise.
I can say that everything in mine is exchanged digitally. I prefer Microsoft Word. Google Docs is fine as well. I don't expect anyone to print it out. I print them all out because for me, it's easier if I can read them. And also when I'm sitting in front of the workshop, I like to be able to have the pages in front of me rather than toggling between Zoom and my desktop. But all of the feedback is electronic.
I will agree that I have to see it digitally and not scanned, but a document that I can work in and get my comments into. Also, sometimes I'll want to take one of your pieces of writing, poetry, and show the rest of the group the piece with your permission. And so I need to have that for screen share. It was an issue in my first class that some people didn't have really great skills with Google Docs or Microsoft Word and had devices that made that incompatible, and it was quite difficult for some of those folks. So I would say think a little bit about whether what you have will support a year-long digital writing exchange, and learn where you have those resources in your community if you need to get them somewhere.
And likewise for the novel writing project, it's all digital in Microsoft Word.
Thank you so much. See what other questions we have. Okay, Joe's question. Are there goals or markers for progress during the novel cohort? The info mentions having a project underway or a developed idea. For example, I have a completed first draft that was workshopped in a loft masterclass. Would I aim to develop the manuscript towards completion, or question mark, question mark, question mark? I think that's for you, Peter, perhaps.
Yeah, I was wondering who it might be for. Yeah, so like I said, I welcome people who have one note scribbled on the back of a grocery store receipt, people who have the first 50 pages that they've been working over and over for the last 5 years, people who have 3 bankers boxes full of manuscript pages that they can't make heads or tails of. The only thing that I ask is that wherever you fall in line with those descriptions, is that you start the class with a willingness to begin anew, which is not to say you take the banker's boxes out to the recycling bin and dump them all in there, but that you start on day one with an attitude of I'm going to begin at the beginning again, and work from there. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
We got a thumbs up, so I think so. Thank you, Peter. There's a question in the chat about the general rate of acceptance, i.e. how many apply versus how many get in. There are, I don't have a specific number, but I think this is in regards to just generally. We have a number of folks who sign up for each of the cohorts. So, you know, there are a limited number of spots. So they are first come, first serve in that sense.
That was from me. I'm Melissa.
Melissa.
I was wondering how racy I needed to be about getting it in on that day. Like, you know, because 5,000 people will apply, and if you don't get it in at like 5 a.m., you won't get a chance. And that was the spirit behind my question.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think urgency is great. Just, you know, when registration opens, try to get signed up as quickly as possible so that you can, yeah, get one of those spots.
Thank you.
Yeah. See.
Maybe that's a good segue into the question of whether to do access funds and or the regular application, Marianne, and you know, if folks should do one or the other or both.
That's a great question. So if you are in need of access funds, I would advocate to only apply to the access fund pool, the access fund application. But if you are not in need of those access funds, then I would advocate to apply to the regular wait list. There are not, I guess there's not as many access fund spots. Those are truly for folks who have a financial need or hardship, or identify as part of a marginalized group. And so that's really where those funds are to go. Any other questions? I'm going to keep going through the chat.
I had put a question in the chat a while ago about how many hours a week do you think most people dedicate to their projects? Like how many hours a week should we expect to set aside in order to do this the right way?
It's a great question. I'll start the answer. I'm sure it's, you know, there's a ton of variation, not just from group to group, but from individual to individual. I've always likened it though for the novel writing project to having a part-time job. And not you know, a 2 hours on Saturday morning kind of part-time job, but a part-time job that accounts for, say, 15 or 20 hours of your week. And there's variation on that, of course, throughout the year as well. When we're in the middle of workshopping, that's going to take a little bit more time because you'll not only have your own writing to do, but you'll also have the work of preparing comments and observations for your colleagues. I meant to say when I was talking in my introduction that you know, I'm thinking of the group this year, and I would say that of the dozen writers, that there are a couple of people who are retired. There are a couple of people who, or more than a couple. There's probably 6 or so people who I would describe as having ordinary lives. That is, they have work and or they have family and or they have other responsibilities that they have to tend to. There are a couple of people who have kind of extraordinary lives, who have full-on careers that require them to travel, that require them to you know, to really to shape and mold their writing life in such a way that it just requires a lot of intentionality and a lot of purpose. Rarely have I met an individual who, if they weren't willing, wouldn't be able to fit this into their lives. I think in my experience, most of the people who sign up for this class are incredibly driven for whatever reason at this time to undertake this project. And if you are driven, if you are dedicated, uh, and however you would describe yourself as being ordinarily busy or extraordinarily busy or having a lot of free time, you're going to find a way to do it. But for the novel writing project, I would say set aside 20 hours a week, between 15 and 20 hours a week on average for the year.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know. Elijah, are you still on? Or Sherry, did you want to speak to how much time you dedicated each week?
Yeah, I'm still here. I would say, it's kind of hard to estimate hours, but things I would keep in mind besides the my own writing, I think to have a successful workshop, it really matters that you read other people's stuff and you try to make constructive comments and think about that deeply. Like that's just a big part of the learning. And also, you want to people to reciprocate when you bring something in. So I would just maybe keep in mind that besides the time you need to write your work and put your pages and poems together, please respect others by setting aside some time to give feedback. That's really important. So just something to consider when you're thinking about your schedule.
I'll add that this is an investment. And so if you're going to do this, you need to be committed to putting in some time. I'd agree with Peter that it's, 15 to 20 hours a week seems reasonable to me. Some of us in my cohort struggle more with that than others because of life, because of their commitments elsewhere. But several of us have basically taken a year a sort of sabbatical, in the sense of taking this year off from doing the kind of paid work they normally do with the support of their partners or their families so they can put in the time. All of us try to write pretty much every day to some extent.
I'd love to answer that question about not literary careers that was in the chat.
Oh yeah, go for it.
I'm sorry, I can't see it right now to see who it was from, but that's a great question because I've taught a lot of different courses in community at the Loft and elsewhere, and very infrequently does somebody have a literary career. Writers come from all sorts of places, even if they've studied writing before, maybe even have an advanced degree in writing, they're all working other jobs, and I'm make my course work for that. I know people are going to be working over the weekends. I think that the way we did it was people would turn in their work on a Friday so that we could get it read over the weekend. And that's just for poetry. We have a little bit of a different pace than you would with fiction or prose of any sort. So yeah, I mean, I'm totally aware of that. And Elijah says full-time desk job these days. So, but also teaching, right, Elijah? So I think that's fantastic. Yeah, so I think don't be worried about that. We have different levels of vocabulary about literary terms and literary processes and so forth. But to me, the key here is that you're reading as well. And I don't know about any other courses, but in my course, we read. We read about craft, we read other books of poetry. So we also have that. So there's a pattern of reading each other's work, reading professional work, and it slows down the reading of other work toward the end so that people can focus more on their projects.
Thank you. A question in the chat. Does applying for Access Fund preclude a general application for a cohort? So if you're applying for Access Funds, there is an application. But if you are not applying for Access Funds, so if you're joining just the regular waitlist, there is no application to join the year-long writing project. I think that's actually one of the things that sets apart the year-long from other programs is that is not a barrier. It is a wait list. So when registration opens, you would join a wait list, and then the Loft would then reach out to you to connect you with the teaching artist if you're to move forward. And then you would have that initial conversation with the teaching artist, discuss your project, just make sure that everything's a fit. And then once we have the green light from there, we will then get in contact with the student and finalize that registration process, which means you'll get the information, the program information about orientation, Zoom links, all of those things. To Heid's point, we do have a lot of resources around troubleshooting technology. We provide a lot of technical assistance. Our coordinators do. So, all of those things to help ensure that, that onboarding process goes as seamless as possible. So there is no application for the year-long writing project regular waitlist. Do we workshop only one person's work per week? I think from Kiara. Are you asking us about a specific cohort, Kiara? Or interested in a specific genre?
So for my section of the novel writing project, it is usually 2 submissions per week. We also, I didn't indicate this earlier, but we submit 3 times over the course of the year, a couple of like 20-page submissions and then a longer submission after that. So, you know, there is during those weeks quite a lot of reading to be done as well. Not just the reading, of course, but the commenting on and responding to. I will add or say as well that I think that you know, I mean, not only is that a responsibility to the course, but it's a great part of the learning that goes on over the course of the year. I mean, when you undertake to understand and invest as much time and energy in the reading and understanding of and critiquing of and complementing another writer, it's inevitable that you're going to learn something about your own work. And that's true of the conversations that happen after the reading as well. So yes, it's work that's, you know, I mean, it's in the service of the workshop, but every conversation, every critique, every bit of marginalia that we write is likewise informing the work that we're doing ourselves and a part of the process of learning this craft. And my to Richard's question, my sessions meet on Thursday nights from 6 to 9 Central Time.
Thank you.
I'll just say that I'm going to have 2 workshop sessions per night. For the 3-hour class, the first hour will probably be craft talk and close reading. So it is important to keep in mind that in addition to the 2 packets that you will have to read, you will also have some published reading, either from a book or essays. I also want to say, this is kind of getting back to the hours thing, because listening to people talk about being retired or being on sabbatical. I just want to say, I did my PhD as a single mom. I wrote both of my books as a single mom. It took a lot of time, but if you're motivated, you can find the time. Even if you have a job, even if you're writing at Burger King while your kid's playing in the playland, like if you're motivated, you can find the time.
Heid, did you want to speak to that question at all?
The question of how much time, or the question of
the workshopping question.
Oh, yeah, we do 2 people a week, not every single week. We go back and forth between generative, visitors, reading. I sometimes ask people to do a presentation, but I do expect people to be right in the same range of 10 to 15 hours a week. Some weeks it'll be less, but yeah, I think that that's a reasonable thing for working seriously on a project. And for some people, it's a matter of giving up some social things. For other people, it's, you know, really just biting into their time. But again, to do it, you're going to have some support, and you'll come out in a better place. So start looking for the support as you're waiting to find out if you get in.
Okay, on that note, we only have a couple minutes left. If you have a last burning question, ask it here, or each of the mentors has dropped their emails in the chat. I will also follow up this presentation with the slides and their information as well, so you can learn more. But I really hope to see some of your names on the wait list come November and also come April for our summer start. And I really appreciate all of your time and effort. Keep writing, keep going, and join us. We would love to support you in your process. Yeah, thank you so much.